to
Oh,
get
I hear you.
text bag worked out. He's everything to all people, and tonight he's here with us. So tonight we have Dr. Marty Becker, who is America's veterinarian and the founder and driver and brainchild of Fear Free, which we're going to talk a lot about. But I wanted to just take a second and remind everybody, he's done a whole bunch of other stuff. Dr. Becker, you've written 8 books that have helped more than 8 million people, more than 8 million copies sold. Loving all the dogs and cats out there. You practice veterinary medicine. You've been on television. You started a magazine. You must be exhausted. Uh-oh, now we have microphone issues. We can't hear you. But so let me turn it over to you, Steve. So you
No, there I am.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
You know what? The Lord has played favorites with me. I'm married to the love of my life for 42 years. I get to be a veterinarian and get to live at Almost Heaven Ranch with my son. My son, this is my son, by the way. This is Cutie Pie, who I love more than my other son. I even tell him that. But Steve and I have been friends for decades, and Liz, you and I are a little, maybe 2 decades less than that. But I'm really delighted to be on the show.
Hard act
Thank
to
you.
follow. Steve is a hard act to follow. I'm going to try to take that little logo off your face because I think people want to see you.
So while you take the logo off the face there, Liz, you did sort of the bio introduction for Marty Becker. I want to do something a little more personal. And I've talked to, I don't know how many times I've interviewed you on the radio, probably 25, 35 times over the years, maybe more. I will tell you right now, I believe that this guy right here is the most influential veterinarian on the planet. And what he has done with Fear Free has saved so many lives, not only in veterinary practice, which we'll talk about, but there's Fear Free shelters that is making life better and saving animals in shelters. Dog trainers and behavior consultants like myself can be certified and are becoming certified as Fear Free. Much more than that, but even more than that, he is an amazing guy who behind the scenes helps people in any way they need it or he perceives that they need it. Dr. Marty Becker, I've never met anyone like you. You are a force of nature. And it is my honor. You say decades. I want to know, and then I want to talk about stuff that matters to other people. But I want to know if you remember, because I don't, for sure, the first time that we met. For me, I remember, this is what I remember. You spoke and I spoke. There was a long table. There were a lot of speakers. It was at Western Veterinary Conference. And then I got some sort of an award, which you might have even given to me. But I'm sure we met before that. And one more thing. I did a book 1,000 years ago called Decoding Your Dog, among the books I've authored. And I tuned into Good Morning America one day because Diane Sawyer's pretty good to look at. And I didn't know you were going to be on. And he's on, as he was on Good Morning America as a regular. And he's mentioning my book. Who does that? Dr. Marty Becker does that. So, do you remember the first time that we met?
I do not. I do know that you and I both had columns, and so I remember talking to you on the phone one time because you're like the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. You're like omnipresent everywhere. You know, Jesus, Germs, and Dale are everywhere. but you have worked. You know, and this is not a mutual flattery thing, although it is. You have worked tirelessly. That you just show up, you know. Half of it they always talk about
without
is showing
being invited,
up.
probably.
But you know, Liz, you're a little whippersnapper compared to us. But I've seen your passion firsthand. When you get behind something, man, you get it in your teeth. And just like looking at ways to do enrichment activities, you know, you just wouldn't take no for an answer. And you're really. We're just blessed to have so many people in the harness, if you think of it like a dog team. Sometimes we rotate up front, sometimes we're in the back helping. Sometimes we're injured either physically or emotionally, but Steve, I got depression issues, and you check in on me all the time, which is so needed. And this dog right here, this is a life support system cleverly disguised, a human life support system cleverly disguised as a dog. He's one thing's great about pets, as we know, and a lot of people don't know, that they're hide that part, kitty boy. He's got a little bit of a weight issue with the stress. That their body temperature is 101.5, so he's like a little hot thermos bottle. But when we stroke them, just something that comes naturally when they're sitting in your lap or something, and you stroke them, within a few seconds, you get this release of positive biochemicals: oxytocin, prolactin, serotonin, phenylethylamine. And pets just don't make us feel good. They're actually good for us, and that's a blessing.
Speaking of that, so I want to talk about fear-free in a moment, but you wrote a book called The Healing Power of Pets, as I recall, the hardest book ever to promote because it came out around 9/11. There it is. Thank you very much. And that book is still available, friends, on Amazon. Nothing is more relevant at this very moment than that book. I was talking about you today, Dr. Becker, because I interviewed a friend of mine, Dr. Ann Beal, who's based in Chicago, who wrote a book. You know Dr. Beal?
I do know Dr. Beal, yeah.
Yeah, she wrote another book about cats. And this book focuses on how cats benefit us. And I mentioned your book, and I said, it might have been called The Healing Power of Dogs. And I suspected you'd agree with this because at that time, and it wasn't that long ago, most of what we knew and most of what we know today about the benefits of companion animals for us, which you began to tell about, it's really dog-centric. We do need to do more research about cats. So I want you to comment on that. And then is your book relevant today like I suggested it?
You know what's funny? I wrote this with a former New York Times reporter. And for me, Steve, I think you've been a lot more about validation than I have. Hell, if I've witnessed it, intuited it, or believed it to be true, then it was gospel. I was a preacher that wasn't preaching from the John 13 verses blank. But when I did this, I had personally experienced the healing power of pets. I'd witnessed it in my own family. I'd had so many clients over the year and friends talk about it. And I'd intuited it. There's a reason why on God's earth we're the only species that broke down our hearts and homes in mass, dog and cats. And in this divine plan, but luckily scientists started to paint in the numbers of what we believe to be true. And I still remember Danielle Morton, this New York Times reporter, said, "Marty, I believe that it helps your wife's rheumatoid arthritis. I believe that it helps your brother's multiple sclerosis when the dog licks his toes." I actually told her that. She goes, "But we have to prove it's true." So 9 reporting trips to 27 states. We read over 200 studies. We looked at 53 books. I'm not kidding you. The Healing Power of Pets damn near killed me because of the rigor that it went through to do that book. And it came out exactly the week of 9/11. So a really good book that's got a bibliography in the back that'll knock your socks off, but it's written in a real, an entertaining way. But you're so right. At the time, there was a paucity of stuff about cats. There was more about horses and therapy, animal-assisted therapy with kangaroos, baby kangaroos, than there were about cats. And now it could certainly be updated because we know so much more about how cats help with cardiovascular incidences. Amazing, preventing heart attacks and strokes.
Mm-hmm. As people are home now, sheltered at home with their pets, are we feeling that bond, you think, more than ever before? And do you think that it is coincidence that people have, in record numbers in most parts of the country, Dr. Bales is right outside Philadelphia typically, and I suspect it's the same there, where a record number of adoptions from shelters and also fosters are taking place. Do you think that's coincidence?
Oh God, no. I really think that God, you always do a good job interviewing Steve. God, I'm just like sucking up to you. I probably got a hold of your leg, just humping it. Oh God, there's Steve Dale. Oh God, I love Steve Dale. That's a bad image to have by anybody. No, you hold on to things that you know to be true and trusted. And even now, I live in this very small community in northern Idaho. Neighbors helping neighbors. I know I just talked to the mayor yesterday about an issue. His wife runs the soup kitchen at our church. His daughter went to school with my daughter, that kind of thing. But with people, there tends to be sometimes hidden agendas, posturing for personal gain, performances. But with pets, it's pure agape love. And that when you come home. You come home with a human and they may or may not greet you, almost assuredly not in my case, because they're off doing something and it's no big deal. But you get met like you're a rock star. When I go from one point A to point B in the house, Cutie Pie follows me. He sits in my lap. He's not checking his watch going, I don't think I'll do it tonight, God. So they're a life support system, physically and emotionally. And I got to read something to you. I got to find this. This is from Dr. Ed Cragen, who's the past president of the Mayo Clinic. Steve, I don't know if you've ever met him.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
in fact, the talk that I referred to, I can't believe this because typically you remember more than I do, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. In New York City.
He was there.
Yeah, in New York City. I remember that.
And also in Vegas, I think.
He was in Vegas. He said, no, why can't I find the darn thing now? He told me just today that, see if I can find it. Oh, I can't believe I can't find it. Anyway, he was talking to me, maybe at a break I'll find it or something, but he was talking about Ed Cragen at the Mayo Clinic. They're in a consortium with the Cleveland Clinic, with Sloan Kettering, with Cedars-Sinai, with Harvard and Duke, and the John Hopkins. So 7 or 8 top groups looking at virology questions. Number 1, a vaccine is 14 to 18 months away. Number 2, what's gonna get those of us that are in their 20s, like Dr. Bales, or those of us that are in our 60s, like you and I, is hypercoagulation. And they're going back now retroactively, like in New York City, 25,000 more deaths than normal during that month because of hypercoagulation. And Steve and Dr. Bales, we know herd immunity, 60 to 70% of the population has to have antibodies before we can go back to life as normal. You're either going to get it and recover, or you're going to get a vaccination.
I want to slow down on that one because I don't want to be a nervous Nelly, but knowing how coronaviruses act in cats, with all that we've learned from the research out of the Wynn Feline Foundation, I'm not so optimistic about immunity. In households with more than 5 cats with feline coronavirus, which is not what causes COVID-19,
right.
They never get rid of it. They just keep giving it to each other. So it's not necessarily a virus that in the other viruses in that family confers immunity or lifelong immunity. So I want to slow down on that. The herd immunity question, I think we are putting constants where, in my opinion, there are variables.
He mentioned that as well. There's no saying you can't get it again. We don't know if the vaccine's going to work. It doesn't look good. And just politics aside, I tell you what, I've got a 95-year-old mother-in-law. I've got a 72-year-old brother-in-law who's got lots of chronic illnesses. I got my beloved wife, Teresa, and my 2 children and my grandchild and all their friends. I tell you, I am scared to death. We just know too much, and I'm not going to get on a plane. I'm not going to get on there with this invisible thing until I've either got antibodies or I'm vaccinated. But I will tell people you should talk to your physician, because I'm taking the advice of Dr. Cragen, and we're all on a baby aspirin every day because I want to prevent hypercoagulation, which leads to stroke or heart attack. And it's just that's a part that's underreported. That's what I'm really worried about. All of a sudden you kill over the heart attack, and it was related to hypercoagulation of COVID. But anyway, I want to go back to pets. What Dr. Cragen said, he is prescribed, he's triple boarded, past president of the Mayo Clinic. He's prescribed pets to 1/3 of his patients over the years at the Healing Power of Pets. And he said, what we can do is take care of our immune system and keep it so if we get it, we recover. And he wrote a book called How Not to Become My Patient, which is a bestseller. It's on Amazon. And he said pets are an important part of a very robust immune system. So when you're shoveling the Prenoproplan Focus into his pie hole, or giving the 40 Flora, or using the Royal Canin we use for our cats, that is the life support system cleverly disguised as a pet. And so what would you not do feeding wise, dental care, ideal body weight, vaccinations, taking it to the veterinarian to take care of your life support system? It's not an option.
If we circle around to Fear Free, what you brought to the forefront of pet care, not just veterinary medicine, was that it's not all about what they give to us, that our pets they're sentient beings. They have emotions, and we need to consider those emotions in the veterinary setting, but also in our homes. And what are we giving back? It's not just about what we get. And that's, as a veterinarian, one of the things that I am passionate about, because I find the more I meet my pet's needs, the stronger our bond. It's not just about me taking. We lost your sound.
But while he gets your sound back, that's a great question.
I'm just saying it's reciprocity. It's not like you're not like a tick that sucks the lifeblood out of the dog. They're not like a maple tree, Steve, with your cats or dogs that you tap into and the sap runs out of them. That's a good thing about the healing power of pets, is we know that it's reciprocal. You start that, and that's the key to the healing power of pets. Steve, walks his dogs a lot in the city. He can't pass a dog on the street walking with his wife and get the healing power of pets. You can't get the healing power of pets looking one outside the screen door, sliding glass door tied up to a chain. It requires intimacy, close physical contact. And just think of that, oxytocin is the hug hormone that we crave. Steve knows I'm a hugger. I used to be before COVID. Number 2 is phenylethylamine, the active ingredient in chocolate. Prolactin is what you think of a mother nursing a baby. Phenylethylamine, the active ingredient in chocolate. Hell, when I'm stroking Cutie Pie, it's like I'm like a mother nursing a baby, eating a chocolate bar and coming off a 1-hour run. And I don't even have to do anything. And he gets the same thing. And now we know 20 years later, Steve, cats did the same thing as well.
Indeed. And your consideration of emotional health, which is what you're talking about now, is what has turned veterinary medicine, and I argue the world, kind of upside down. Because, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe, Dr. Becker, when you first began working as a veterinarian, and Dr. Bales, you can tell me if the same is true for you. And we're talking about much more recently. By the way, Dr. Bales was just the commencement speaker. Isn't that cool?
Were you really at your alma mater?
At the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Yeah.
Nice.
That is nice.
That's the first school, right, in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Is that the first veterinary school? Yeah.
Yeah. So you weren't taught about emotional health, and you'll tell me the story of how, we have to begin thinking about this because it's important.
Well, I was, all three of us know Temple Grandin. So Fear Free is not me. Fear Free is we. I happen to have an epiphany, a transformation. I think all of us have had a transformational moment. I still remember a pastor talked about forgiveness. And there were several people that I hated that I was poisoning myself with hate. And after this transformation, I go out in the parking lot of the church and call them up and bury the hatchet. We've had things happen, with people we love, family, friends, mentors. Ross Clark, this is funny. Ross Clark, who is like the godfather of veterinary practice management, talked to me one time and told me to stop belching in public. I would try to belch. Mary had a little lamb. I never quite got to the end of the first part, but it was close. And my mother had tried to stop me. My wife had tried to stop me. And finally, Ross Clark saying, Marty, I love you just like you are, but I really recommend stop belching in public. So that is a true story. But it's funny when I heard it from her, I knew it to be true. That
heard it from who?
Karen Overall from Penn, the boarded veterinary behaviorist, and she said,
and my professor.
Yeah, the fear is the worst thing a social species can experience. It causes permanent damage to the brain. Talked about the development of maladaptive fear. Talked about how fear is caused by something painful or something disturbing. Just think of nails trimmed too short. That's painful. Now, seeing the nail trimmers is disturbing. That's why the pets freak out when you go to the drawer where the nail trimmers are. It's a botched catheter placement or blood draw by the veterinary healthcare team, by mistake or not. It's a vaccination that not associated with some kind of distraction or pleasure. From the pets can't understand why a procedure benefits them, and they can't anticipate or expect the relief of pain. When we get a flu vaccine, or if we ever get a COVID vaccine, we know why it benefits it. We know the discomfort lasts a few seconds, and then if it hurts, you take a over-the-counter product. Cutie Pie has no idea why a vaccine benefits him, and he can't anticipate or expect the relief of pain. So I before that talk was stretching cats out into 2 zip codes like everybody else at times, and had more than one dog poop in my pocket. I'm not Temple Grandin. I mentioned Temple Grandin earlier. That woman is gifted and has superpowers. But we leaned back on the boarded veterinary behaviorist, and your decoded book, Steve, is what you worked with. You have done a lot. I mean, in rhetoric and reality, to lift up the brand of boarded veterinary behaviorists. Most people don't know there even is such a thing, and there's 87 of them. The American College of Veterinary Behavior, and I believe you're working on the cat book.
Yeah. In fact, you can pre-order that on Amazon as we speak. Decoding.
Oh boy. Those two books are on my shelf and referred to frequently, because you got what's happened. We've all been frustrated, Steve, seeing Stacy from Bubbles and Bow Pet Salon talking about dermatitis, and Mike from Acme Dog Training about behavior. When there are boarded veterinary behaviorists, we wouldn't allow that on the human side with people that didn't have authenticity and credibility, education, training, and experience.
Yep. I agree with you. So
I will add to that list professional responsibility. I think that it's something that we don't really talk about very much or think about. But if, we have a license, and if a professional who holds a license can't refer back to the literature or common practice to why that they're saying is more than just their opinion, then we get in big trouble or get our license taken away. So it's really important to understand who you're getting your information from and what their professional responsibility is.
God, this so frustrates me. I could just boil. So-called pet influencers. Steve and I run into them at blog pods and other things where they bring in these celebrity pets. Not all celebrity pets and their people. I have some really good friends. Nala Cat's a good example. They're responsible. They have the most followed cat on the internet, NALA. But others, they're hawking CBD oil, their own food lines, and not a shred of education, training, and experience. And they can say something about CBD doing this and that and face no consequences. You're exactly right, Dr. Bales. We do it, and you have a problem. You're going to get your license jerked, or you're going to get sued, or both, and not the same.
And our license is something that that's 4 years of my life I'm never getting back. So I take it very seriously. Very, very seriously.
So let me back up one step here and rewind the tape. Because you mentioned Dr. Karen Overall, you mentioned an epiphany, but you didn't say what it is. So I think that's important that you know what you're talking about.
Thank God you're interviewing me, because I chase rabbits all the time. I thought what you saw taking a pet into a stressful situation, to the veterinarian, to the groomer, sometimes into boarding and daycare, The dog salivating, yawning, licking its lips, blinking, staring, shivering, shaking, panting, hiding, biting, barking, jumping, lunging, furrowed brow, tail tucked. And we used to joke that cats were effed going to the clinic. Not in that way, Steve, naughty boy. Fight, flight, freeze, or fidget. And we love frozen cats. Oh my God, I wish every cat was frozen. I could do anything I wanted to it. I thought that was collateral damage and there was nothing you can do. And boy, was it not collateral damage. Repeat severe psychological damage to pets. Behavior produces a physiologic response, so behavior is medicine. And really, when you look at the emotional well-being of animals, it's not only the right thing to do. Liz and I both took an oath, where's my arm at here, to prevent or relieve animal pain and suffering. We were causing it by what we were doing or not doing. It's better medicine. There are fewer injuries. It's easier to attract and retain people. Listen to this for the people that are listening. An LVT, RVT, CVT is basically a veterinary nurse. It's a 2-year program. It typically costs $40,000. And there was a study from NAFTA. Steve, you and I were there when the study was released at the Banfield Pet Healthcare Summit.
Yes.
6 out of 10 CVTs, RVTs, LVTs had quit the profession after 5 years. So they spent $40,000, didn't make any money for 2 years. And the again, education, training, and experience, they did have the license. Why'd they quit? It wasn't the hours. It wasn't the money. They knew that going in. It was the perceived brutality of practice. They don't want to be part of a rodeo, judo throw, politics, restraint, rugby scrum, whatever you think of it as. That's not what they bought in for. And that's what we were taught. I was talking to a veterinarian today that had, wanted to be a cow vet, but she couldn't palpate the ovaries. And this old farm boy couldn't either, by the way. To tell if a cow's ready to breed, you have to put your arm up its butthole. And they don't want your arm up their butthole, so they're squeezing it like it hurts like hell. And you've got a glove on and you're trying to feel an ovary through the wall of their rectum. Hell, that thing could have been as big as an orange and I probably couldn't have felt it. I don't know how my classmates could feel it, but and now I wonder, now looking back, why did the cow hate to see the veterinary students coming? Well, duh, the sleeve have a ridge on it. And after about the 3rd student that was fishing around in there, that lubricant was tinged with blood. And we all thought, why don't the dang cow sit still so we can feel it? God, I look back at some of the stuff and it just makes me literally nauseous thinking about how I used to do things as a veterinarian.
So what looks different? So if you've been, you haven't had a dog for 10 years and you've got a new dog, and when this virus is over, you're heading back to the veterinarian and you find a fear-free clinic. What's going to look different that you hadn't seen before?
Here's what I want you to do. First of all, we've really let you down as a profession. Your dog has a noise phobia. It's thunderstorms already in Tampa. This 4th of July coming up. And we wouldn't talk to you about it. You had to have your dog shiver, shake, pant, run through a plate glass window, run off and be hit by a car or disappear for days and never come back, be cowering in the basement. We have solutions. There's a prescription product called Sileo, Sileo. They're a sponsor of Fear Free, by the way. I want to just mention that. There are pheromones from SIVA that Steve and I shout from the rooftops about all the time that work very well. There's compression garments. There's nutraceuticals like Zilkene. There's Angstane. There's a slew of products. There's generic Xanax. There's gabapentin. There's trazodone. We can solve those things. We can mitigate it. They don't have to think they're going to die. And I'll tell you what we're going to see. We're going to see a wave of separation anxiety. We're already seeing it from our own team members at Fear Free. Now when they go outside to check the sprinkler, the dog is freaking out because it's been with you all the time. And I'm telling you, the veterinarian that is trained about emotional well-being, their teams, we are here for you. And Steve, you always give a shout out to Fear Free Happy Homes. It's complimentary to all pet owners. There's an incredible amount of data. But this is the way I see a fear-free practice. I still practice. The last time I practiced was pre-COVID. But the last time I practiced, I looked out in the parking lot and there were 8 waiting rooms in the parking lot. This is pre-COVID. This is before curbside drop-off. People checked in and went back out and waited in their vehicles with their pet. We didn't check them in over the phone like curbside service, but they didn't wait with other pets and people in the waiting room. They were out in their vehicle, listening to calming music, having a little talk, sitting on your lap. And then anyway, when the dogs literally will drag the pet owner into the hospital because there's tasty treats. We put the treat into treatment. And the pet parent has to try to drag the dog out. There's so many good things happening there. It's treats, it's physical touch, it's a choice of where they're examined, it's these pheromones, it's this calming music, it's the way we call it considered approach, the touch gradient, gentle control, not restraint. And for cats, I haven't seen too many cats pulling their owners into the hospital. In fact, I haven't seen one. But it's not the worst thing that's going to happen to them this month. At least it's neutral. And we all know Alana Rodan, the feline expert. Alana Rodan told me 5 or 6 years ago that 85% of the cats that went to her practice took treats. And I was like, really? She goes, what percent take it at your practice? And this was at the start of Fear Free. I said, I don't know, 20% maybe, 25% if we're lucky. Well, you know what? We're not at 85%, but we're getting closer. And if a cat's taking a treat in a veterinary hospital, you know that they don't have much fear, anxiety, and stress. So that's my barometer. They might not be, they're probably slap happy to be able to leave the hospital, unlike the dogs that want to hang around in there a lot of times. But that's what I see, Dr. Bales, is people that want to take pets in because they don't feel like they're hurting them by trying to help them, and pets that want to go to the vet.
So Fear Free is caught on so quickly. It's incredible. I mean, I've been around veterinary medicine for a little while, and it takes the best initiatives years for people to even know about, because there's so much to keep up on. This caught on instantly, and I think Dr. Becker, there are a lot of reasons for that, some of which you allude to. I think millennials really seek in particular.
Oh, God, yes.
This kind of thing. Because they look for that. They care. All generations have cared about the emotional health of their pets. But millennials have taken it to an all new level, I think. So here's what happens, or has happened. Fear Free, a success. I know you're not exactly where you want to be, but my God, who could have guessed that most veterinarians would know about Fear Free for sure, and so many be certified, so many practices certified. You could tell me what the numbers are. The point is, it's overtaken the profession. Now, that's not good enough. You said, we've got to do something for these shelter animals. So I want you to talk about Fear Free shelters, because that is also saving lives. And by the way, when I said one more thing, when I said earlier saving lives, I mean it, because with cats, as you know, Dr. Bales, so many people just haven't gone to the veterinarian with their cat because just taking out the carrier, the cat is in the next county, right? And already has a passport wanting to leave the country even. Well, this is changing all of that. And once at the veterinarian, dog or cat, if the animal has an awful experience, I argue as the person, the owner, the companion of that, I'm having an awful experience too. I feel a sinking feeling in my stomach if I know or believe that my pet, even if I don't believe correctly, if I believe that my pet, my perception is everything. If my perception is that my pet is being tortured in some way, or just not even, just is upset. And you said, Dr. Becker, somewhere along the way, think they're going to die. I've talked to you about this, and I've talked to Dr. Overall about this, actually, who you mentioned, the veterinary behaviorist. I do believe, as does she, and I think you do too, that many of these animals, previous to Fear Free, actually do think they're going to die. Literally. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine? So you've changed all that and now said, we've got to take it all to shelters. That is the longest question I think I'll ever ask you. And your audio is off.
Nobody can tell if I'm looking at you guys or not, because my eyes look like like coin slots in a vending machine. Wow. And so I can't even see my own eyes looking in there.
Hey, I'm not backlit properly either. This is not a studio, it's my living room.
Did you know Steve Ettinger's probably the world's most well-known, famous veterinarian because he's edited the textbook of veterinary internal medicine. He's a good friend of all of ours. And he said, I always looked at the emotional well-being of my own pets. I don't know why I didn't think about the emotional well-being of my patients. I think a lot of us have had this. We entered school. We love pets. We were compassionate. We were trained in a different way. We taught that pets didn't feel pain. We were taught in restraint. And when you talk about how it picked up, we're really, it goes back to just the heart of why you want to be a veterinarian to begin with. You want to love them. You want them to love you back. And you don't want a horse to be terrified of you. Our own veterinarian, we used to have a veterinarian that came out that was very rough with the horses, and he'd hold on the halter when he'd, do a blood draw or do something. Some of the horses would rear up, and he'd literally lift him off the ground, but he'd still hold on. Then he'd just come back down like a elevator in your apartment, and never stop talking loud. And now the veterinarian that comes out actually has homemade molasses treats. She might just swing by on her way back into town, give the horses some molasses treats. And now the horses, when she pulls up, instead of running off to the North 40, the horses run to her. And same thing with the farrier. The farrier is not brutal and not jerking and hitting and kicking them and punching them like other farriers have done, but builds a relationship with them. So, we were lucky we incubated inside of the American Animal Hospital Association and got an incredible COO, Ruth Garcia, that knew how to expand this and how to be able to serve a lot of people. But early on, we thought, well, what good is it to have this great experience at the vet if it's lousy at home? So we created Fear-Free Happy Homes to look at how do you reduce fear, anxiety, and stress at home. And how do you increase happy and calm, and how do you promote enrichment? I mean, Steve, you and I could go, and Dr. Bales, I mean, you're an inventor with enrichment.
Literally an inventor.
Literally. They're not, pets aren't made to be born retired. In their brains, depending on the species and the breed and the individual, there's this genetic exuberance that needs to be manifested itself. So we created Fear-Free Happy Homes, which is free to all. Pet parents will always be free. And then we looked at, let's go back farther. We created stuff for groomers and trainers, which you mentioned. We're working on stuff for boarding and daycare. There's an equine task force formed. Avian and exotics is done. Next comes dairy cows, and then comes wildlife, and we're going to march through the species. But at shelters, we worked with Brenda Griffin at the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine Shelter Medicine program, along with UC Davis Shelter Medicine Program, along with Maddie's Fund, and along with the San Francisco SPCA. Brenda Griffin and Julie Levy, especially Brenda, took the key role in this, recipe. But an incredible, complimentary 5-hour online program. I talked to Ruth the other day, the COO, and I think we were at 27,000.
Wow.
Individuals have gone through a 5-hour program. Twice during COVID, they've almost crashed our site. But the completion rates for online programs, 1-hour programs, in single digits. It just shows you that these people that work or volunteer at shelters or rescues, what's in their heart? They want to look not just healthy, because they figure the shelter vet or the veterinarian does that, but happy and healthy. That's the key.
That everyone who gets involved with animals, maybe not everyone, most people who get involved with animals want exactly that. We got in this to be healers and helpers. And when to get our job done, we are not doing that, it does take a toll. And right. I'm really glad you started tonight with saying that you struggle with depression, because I think we need to sort of pull the covers off of mental health problems, and veterinarians are struggling. And I think Fear-Free really gives optimism and positive tools to connect with the pets in our office, to connect with our clients. We need, and my God, more than ever right now, we need that optimism and tools to know how, you can want to, but if you don't know how to, you're kind of stuck. And those tools to really bring the joy back and the connection and the bond back, not just with the veterinarian and the patient, but also with the veterinarian and the owner of the pet. That's so important.
Well, I was telling Dr. Cragen today, who I mentioned earlier from the Mayo Clinic, and Steve and I, you get your mind's eye, like you think of a pink elephant, and there's certain things that get at your, like when I think of my mom's best friend, I think of her apple pie a la mode. But Dr. Cragen's kind of a different looking guy. He looks like what I thought Ichabod Crane looked like or something, He's and he's. We were in at one time at the National Wellness Conference in some small town in Wisconsin. We went into a dive bar, Chuck Weiner from Hills, Ed Cragen from the Mayo Clinic, and Marty Becker. And we order, Dr. Chuck Weiner and I order a beer and cheese curds. And do you remember that commercial when E.F. Hutton speaks? Everybody listens. Do you remember that?
I do.
It gets to him and he goes, "Do you have tofu?" and everybody in the bar, what in the hell? This guy is in here ordering tofu, but his wife's a dietitian at Mayo, and he's quite a health nut. But we were talking about why he's going to do a webinar for Fear Free about how not to be my patient, how not to succumb to this. And one of the things he talked about, you could lose your job. You could lose your home. You could, maybe even lose somebody but the one thing you're not going to lose is the unconditional love of a pet. And so that certainty that comes from that, for me too, it's faith, it's family, it's these pets that are just rock solid, certain. And again, those pets just don't make us feel good. They're actually good for us in ways that are, from the miraculous to the mundane. It's just unbelievable. And we're still finding out. You remember when we used to think that pets cause, if you had allergies or you had children, you shouldn't have pets because they're going to cause allergies. And it's exactly the opposite, that the more pets you have earlier in life, the less allergies, asthma, and eczema you'll have in your entire life. It's pretty remarkable. Just think of it again. It's a life support system, cleverly disguised as a four-legged, but most people call them their child now.
Yeah, actually, yes. And incidentally, if you're allergic to cats coming this year, Purina, as I think you know, Dr. Becker, and Dr. Bales, you may know, has a pet food out, or will be out, a Purina Pro Plan that actually, it's called Live Clear, and it neutralizes the protein in cat saliva that all those millions of people that are allergic to cats would otherwise be allergic to.
Including me and my daughter. And you might have seen Phoebe, my cat, walking across the screen here.
Yeah.
And it is out, and I can tell you that for sure because my bag is on its way from Chewy.com. So
nice.
I'm very excited to give it a try.
And one thing I want to do, I don't have, I just want to give a shout out to Purina. I don't have a relationship with them. They're not a sponsor of Fear Free, but I admire the heck out of that company. They do, Steve, you and I have been there for various events. They do research. So many companies, I won't mention who, that they don't employ researchers. And Purina, like I remember when they did, what was the one, the Focus, their brain diet, and then it ended up with Purina Pro Plan Focus, which is over the you can buy it anywhere, Amazon or Chewy. A decade's worth of research, 10 years, and I don't know how long. I think it's something in that same neighborhood for this product. It works. It's got clinical proof that it works. And so, Dr. Bales, I mean, look at you. I mean, you're flaunching at the bit because a veterinarian allergic to cats is going to get her bag.
I can't wait.
All right, so you mentioned Fear Free Happy Homes, but I want to make this clear. What it is a website. And in fact, in the comments, and we should get to some of those, I think, Dr. Bales, but in the comments, someone mentioned in one of those comments, I'm concerned about my dog. And you mentioned this too, I think, Dr. Becker, when I go back to whatever normal life turns out to be when all this is over, having separation anxiety. Well, there's a story about that. I know that because I wrote the story, but it's at fearfreehappyhomes.com. But the information that you find there, so if you go to a journal, a veterinary journal, that publication, that paper has been peer reviewed. In essence, everything on this website is peer reviewed, and not just by an editor who's checking for spelling. It's peer reviewed by behaviorists, boarded behaviorists, which is amazing. And the best part about this website, you get free stuff, or at least discounted stuff.
Yeah, so you know what? It'll always be free too. I notice there's lots of people with good intentions. This is 90 days free, and this is, then, to don't have anything. This will always be free. It's just in the Constitution. So you're never fear-free, happy homes. It has stuff you won't find anywhere else. Like if I want to find out something about dog diarrhea or feline urinary tract issues, Pet MD and Vet Street and probably one of the VCA sites or something will come up, and there's some really good sources out there, but not about the emotional well-being. That's our sweet spot. That's where we focus, and about enrichment. And Dr. Bales, I'm not sure, what led you to go on that path to, I don't know how many times you heard no with your feeding system, but to watch Tally, our cat, our Teresa, by the way, who Steve, she dressed Tally up in this tiger outfit. So now she's Lion Queen or whatever, Tiger Queen, of North Idaho. But to watch that cat who can't get the birds outside, can't get the chipmunks as she sees out this log house up in the mountains of North Idaho, she goes on the hunt for her kibble. And to watch her,
what that is for people who don't know, Dr. Becker.
I'll ask you, because I'd hoped it would be out already, but with COVID, we're a little delayed in shipping. But now the mice are adjustable, so if your cat's ready for a harder challenge, you can make the opening smaller and get that more hunting there. And I've got a wet food feeder coming, and 3 more puzzle feeders, and I cannot wait to show you the carrier that I have coming. That's going to be a big secret until I'm ready to show you. But to really take into consideration, my passion is, what does the animal want? What do they need? What are their instincts? And how can we work with it instead of against it to get what we want? I was a horse person actually growing up, and listening to you talk about horses, man, I look back and we were all trained through being rough. And so we kind of forced the horse to give us what we wanted instead of working with them to get what we wanted. And it's so exciting to think that we're going to be able to use these techniques. You've revolutionized the way we're thinking about all of these issues. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes, he has. The indoor hunting feeder, I just want to mention so people know, because it sounds cool, right? Actually, I think I have one in this room I could go show people. I have them all over the house too. And the idea is, even, by the way, our 17-year-old cat, Roxy, will go, not too quickly, but she will go from place to place to place to look for her food, which motivates her to move. It motivates her to still climb. And she wants to do it. No one's forcing her to do this. She wants to do that because it is innate in cats that they want to hunt. And you mentioned the new versions you have out. So it's indoor hunting feeder for people that don't know about it. We have a comment here. I'm a volunteer in Sacramento with the SPCA, and fortunate enough to be offered fear-free training, and she loves the training. And we have a lot of comments just like that. We have people, incidentally, Dr. Becker, watching from all over the world, including Mexico, which you and I were scheduled to be at. I don't know if that's going to happen. I never knew how healing my cat was until he passed. He was 22 years old. I had him forever and just never knew how much he gave me until I couldn't give him any more. I mean, the thing about cats is sometimes it's a hard sell. The best sales force for cats are cats. So really, for people who try it the first time, then they know what we're talking about. There, you talk about studies. There have been studies that have been done around the world about why we are so connected to dogs. And unless you've had a personal bad experience, some of those endorphins you talk about, and they do a happy dance in your head. Right. They can't help but do it when you just see a dog, even on the street, actually. But with cats, not so much. Kind of either love them or hate them. I'm curious what you both think. I think that's changing.
I do too. I think the more that people understand what a cat is, I love to use the analogy of, do you ever go, Dr. Becker, to get a drink, and maybe you thought you were going to get milk, but it's orange juice? And like, oh, that's awful. But it's because you were expecting the wrong thing. It's perfectly fine for what it was. And I think that people have been looking at a cat and expecting a dog for years. And when you really understand how amazing a cat is and what to expect from a cat, I'm turning lots of people. Once they really get it, the part about being a hunter and that they're high frequency, low intensity interactors. They're not don't take it personally that they don't want to be pet for 45 minutes. Just understand what they're about. And then the whole world opens up and they become the most magical, incredible creatures. How do you think it's changing?
You know, Narda Robinson, who is, she's smart. She's an MD, DVM. She used to head integrative medicine at Colorado State University. And I remember when I was writing The Healing Power of Pets, she talked to me about cracking the code on feline communication. Because with dogs, I was pretty darn good at knowing the sounds and the body language, but cats, I was terrible. And she told me to start, we had indoor cats and barn cats, and start listening to their sounds. And then what just preceded it? Like, was it fear? Was it happiness? Was it stress? Was it a hunting, excitement? And not very long, I started to figure out what these sounds made. And so it opened up that part. We know they can't speak English or Spanish or Japanese, but they do communicate with you through their body language and vocalizations. And I think with people, it fits in. You get to see the wild inside. I mean, Jackson Galaxy and others talk about House Panther. To watch this magnificently athletic animal that. And the other thing, we're Cutie Pie and I have a fireside chat every Thursday at 1:00 on Facebook Live, and we're going to go over in a couple of weeks on just the anatomical features of a cat. How many muscles are in that tail of theirs, and how omnidirectional their ears are, and their hearing, and what these whiskers are. And a lot of people, if you have a dog out there, one of the things you probably don't notice is they have little hairs on the back of their legs right back here, little tactile hairs that are like their whiskers. And most people don't even notice them. They don't notice that little pouch on the back of their ear, those little ridges on the bottom part of their gum. I'll tell you, God was having some of his best days when he designed a dog and a cat. And if you don't have one, you have no idea what you're missing. There's nothing else like it. It makes you laugh every day. It makes you healthier every day. You talked a little bit about depression issues. I'm very vocal about my own depression issues and having to take an antidepressant. I'd be horrible, miserable if I was not. And I had an open talk with Steve. I was on too low a dose and got way off center. And pretty soon that seemed like that was the new normal. I was just, I'm exhausted. I've been traveling so much, and it was just a medication thing. And when I talked to the doctor and upped the dose, oh my God, I came back into the sunshine side of the mountain again. Oh my God, And so don't not talk to a doctor. I was talking to somebody else today about how much through therapy they help, and your friendships, your pets, your therapist, your doctor with your medications. You don't have to be sad. There's help out there for you.
Yeah. Well,
I worry a lot about our human physicians right now. We vets have been in the trenches, underarmed for what we're up against. but a lot human doctors really haven't had that experience of not having the equipment they need, the supplies that they need.
I know, you're right.
I worry so much about the frustration, the PTSD they're going to have, and depression.
Yeah.
So
well, you know,
to us, we really should find a way to communicate about the struggle.
If anybody out there listening, there's nobody that has seen more life and death than a veterinarian. It's partially because, you know, the old family doctor, I remember we had a family doctor that was for the whole family, and he practiced like 50 years in our town. He knew, I mean, he almost knew cradle to grave, but he knew, you know, my dad's brother and the health conditions they have, and grandma, and that's almost non-existent now. Most doctors know one organ of you. They know your heart or your kidneys. They don't know your life. And we see these people from cradle to grave, usually 4 or 5 pets at least in somebody's lifetime. And there's almost death every day. You're seeing something that either an accident, an illness, just old age, you say goodbye, and 15 minutes later, you're saying hello to a new kitten in there. It's really rough. You don't think about it as what a veterinarian goes through. A lot of that stuff gets buried and comes out when you lose your own pet. Mm. And you're right. Unlike physicians that get to typically do what's best for the patient, where there's always the budgets are concerned, and we have to get by and do stuff with not everything. And that's exactly what you're saying now. They too are forced to get by with a lot of things that we're kind of used to.
Yeah. And also I worry about them having much more of the emotional burden of the patient, where they've been able to have, you know, had a whole career where you have the family there to be the support, and now they're not. And so they're having to deal with intimate issues that haven't had before. And it's a lot.
Well put.
It's a lot.
Well put. Yeah. I know they're in our prayers. I do wish there was something else that could be done. There'd be a great dialogue there. And
yeah, well, maybe.
And Steve, one thing I wanted to mention before, I don't know how much more time we have, but one of the things you've always said, we can't help patients we don't see. And if people think, oh, it's too hurtful for the pet, or it's a hassle to me, we don't see them. If people think it's just, you know, I can't afford it. Veterinary medicine is a great bargain. That's a whole nother show. But it still doesn't mean that a lot of people just can't afford the highest level of care. And there's the guilt that comes from that of not being able to take them in. But I just want you to, you know, Steve, you've been such a, because you're not a veterinarian, it's easier for you to talk sometimes, to shine a light on us. If you want to make money, you don't become a veterinarian. And that's why there's only about 1.4 applicant. Listen to me, anybody listening, 1.4 applicant for every opening in veterinary school. What you used to hear, it's harder to get in veterinary school than medical school, is not true anymore.
I did not know that.
It's down to 1.4 to 1. Mm-hmm. And because they're not attracted, even with the love of animals. You go to school 4 years in computer programming and make 50% more than you do starting out as a veterinarian that has spent 8 years, is $150,000 in debt on average. I think it's somewhere around there, isn't it, Steve? Yeah. And they've lost 8 years of earning capacity. You haven't made any money for 8 years. You're $150,000 in debt, and you're making less than a plumber, literally, or electrician, or somebody that's in computer programming. So, gosh, I'll tell you one thing: your veterinarian's still having to work through COVID. They give so much of themselves. It'd be so welcome to get a heartfelt thank you online, or a card that's mailed, or some way to communicate the appreciation you have for these hometown heroes.
It matters so much. It matters so much.
I just want to read one comment for you guys to comment on, because you'll hear why, and then we're going to wind it down. But lost my husband and my dog. They were very close. She went into depression, just now coming around. Would another animal help her?
I'll say unequivocally yes, and I'll tell you why. Banfield, which has somewhere around 1,000 practices, they have an incredibly sophisticated software called Petware. And it's an information system, and they can show that pets that have a buddy, A dog has another dog. They live longer. They are hospitalized less often. When they are hospitalized, they get out faster. As much as I love Cutie Pie, I can't smell another dog's ass and get any information from it as much as I don't want to. I can't go out there and smell that chipmunk that's ran across the porch out here and he's tracking it across the porch, or understand that chorus that sometimes come up the canyon from a neighbor that lives a mile away. I can't see it. I can't smell it. I don't understand it. And when they have a pet buddy to live a richer life, it's, we give pets before COVID kind of the time we can share and the love we can spare wrapped around our otherwise hectic lives. And now those of us that have appreciated our pets now see even more of this magnificence of these animals and what they add to our lives. And I don't think that's a debt we probably can never repay. The more we're in it, I know how all three of us, Steve, I always think of you with Edith, that freaking dog walking around Chicago with a stick that's longer than Edith is because it's an enrichment activity. It makes me smile. Every time I think of that dog, I smile. Walking around Chicago with a stick in her mouth. And she's a little tyke. She's not a retriever. Maybe there's a shot of retriever in her. I don't know.
I don't know either. She was about 40 pounds.
Yeah. I love that dog. I love that dog. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Dr. Becker, you mentioned, or actually, Dr. Bales, you mentioned that Dr. Becker is on something about a mountain. Well, you are always on the sunny side of that mountain. So for both of you, we got to end this on an upbeat note. What are you inspired by just today? I want to ask both of you. Dr. Bales?
Wow, that's a great question. Today specifically, watching my 10-year-old interact with our cat is watching kids and animals together, particularly right now when kids don't have friends to play with and they have that need to connect. Yeah. How she connects with both our dog and our cat is just a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing.
And I'm inspired, Steve. That's I don't think you've ever asked me that question. I'd like it. I'm inspired by Dr. Cragen, triple boarded at Mayo, past president of Mayo, talking about the healing power of pets. And secondarily, the way our beloved profession, and Steve, you couldn't love it any more than Liz and I do, that we have responded to this. We have adapted and responded in a way that I thought it would have taken us about 10 years to have some of the changes that we've done in 3 months. And so I'm so proud of our profession. And anybody out there, please give out, these people are working hard and it's very stressful because if you're in these areas, like you're in New York City or New Jersey, you're right in the heart of COVID and you can't see it. I mean, it's invisible. And just they give so much of themselves. Please recognize them. How about you, Steve? What inspired you today?
Well, okay, so I can answer that. So I'm wearing this hat. It says Chicago Police Department.
I see it. Yeah.
So what inspires me? This was given to me by a former superintendent, actually. And no, I was not behind bars when he gave it to me.
Are you sure?
What inspires me are all the first responders. And
that's good.
The definition of first responders has changed, right? So absolutely, it is firefighters, paramedics, it is police officers, but it's the person at the grocery store. Right. It's the person who delivers the groceries.
Yes.
It's the person that delivers for Amazon. It is now a very long list of people that have stepped up and have been there for all of us. I was also inspired by our former First Lady, Laura Bush. So I was watching the TV special about a week and a half ago. It was a concert. It was on all the networks. I don't recall the name of the special. And it was to raise money to help people who cannot pay for their food now. And it was an amazing special, great artist. But both former First Ladies, also Michelle Obama, spoke. And the first words out of Laura Bush's mouth where I want to thank, she said something similar to what I just did. I want to thank those on the front lines. And she thanked instantly veterinarians. And I know if she had thought about it, she would have said technicians also. and anyone who works at a veterinary practice, because all of you who are working through this are on the front lines just as well, and in many cases have given that protection equipment over to the human side and have sacrificed. And I know I lost a veterinary friend. I know Dr. Bales knows that I did. And, you know, unfortunately, I'm not alone here. So for all of you that are heroes, because you are stepping up, thank you very much. And that's what inspires me. That answers maybe your question. Thank you all very much for joining us. This was fun. I get to speak again. How many times? This is 8,114 that I've interviewed Dr. Becker. One of these days, I'm going to make him interview me. Liz Bales, you're amazing. Thank you for putting this together. And I lose a pound or two. I would not do that.
Oh. I love this freaking dog, man. You know what? I used to end a show. There's only one greatest pet in the world, and every family has him or her. Boy, is that ever the truth. Everybody out there listening or watching is just like, if you could only meet my pets, you know, if you could meet Edith or you could meet Dr. Bell's cat, you would know why there's only one greatest pet, and I'm lucky enough to have him or her.
Well, I'm lucky enough to have both of you in my life. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Blessings. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.